Hi everyone, Laurel Beard here with the Blitsy Creative Team, and today I'm going to show you two cards on using distress inks and stamping with water. You see the background there on the left and the right card? That's actually stamping with a form of water, and I'll show you how I did that. This is just a piece of watercolored cardstock. I'm using the Tim Holtz watercolored cardstock. I'm using the smooth side. And I've got some Seedless Preserves distress ink, and I'm just taking that pad direct to my paper and fully saturating my paper with that purple ink there. And I tend to clean as I go because if I don't, I get the ink all over the place, all over places I don't want it to be. So I've got that purple, that Seedless Preserves down on the cardstock, and I've got a background stamp. This is the Lotus background by Hero Arts. It's very old, but any kind of stamp that you have in your stash or that the store carries will work. And I am spritzing that with water. That is straight up water, nothing added to it, just good old H2O. And I'm going to take that and stamp with it. So I'm going to place the background right over my panel there, and I'm going to press really hard, making sure to do even pressure there. I want to give enough time for the water to saturate into the cardstock there. So I'm giving some pretty firm pressure. You probably don't have to hold it down as long as I'm doing, but I just wanted to make sure that I gave it enough time for that water to absorb into the paper. I even went as far as grabbing an acrylic block and pressing down some more. Again, this is probably unnecessary, but I did it anyway. And look, you can see that background coming through. Isn't that neat? Let me kind of clean up my area there. And you can see the background. That's just water. This is only going to work with distress inks, by the way, because distress inks are formulated to react with water. So if you try it with any other kind of inks, you're probably not going to get these results. But I just love that about distress inks. You can stamp with water. Cool beans, you know? So I'm going to do it again. I can't believe I just said cool beans on camera. Moving on. So I'm going to do the second card. So again, I'm inking up the same cardstock with the same ink. Cleaning as I go, of course. This time I've got just a piece of hardy board here. Now this time I'm going to use another distress ink because I want to actually give it like a little silver look. So I'm going over the top with some pumice stone distress ink. This is totally optional. You can leave this out if you want. And this time I'm using Perfect Pearls water mix, which is just a water mixed in with this Perfect Pearl. It'll give it a nice little shine. You could totally omit the pumice stone and just use the Perfect Pearl mist if you want to directly onto that stamp like I did the first time. If you want to. Totally up to you. I just wanted to show you two different looks. When you add the pumice stone and the Perfect Pearls together, it gives it this really pretty shiny silver color. I just think it's quite pretty. So you can see the difference between the two. If you stamp with water on the right, and then I stamped with distress ink and a Perfect Pearls mist on the left. Either one is just super pretty. So I set that aside to let those card panels dry, and now I need to work on creating a sentiment. So I'm going to do that with some die cutting. So I'm inking up a piece of white cardstock with some Versamark ink, and then I'm going to sprinkle on some Zing black glitter finish embossing powder. This is just black embossing powder with little flecks of glitter in it. Regular black embossing powder will work, or you could just die cut with some black cardstock, but I wanted to add a little bit of shine, so I'm going this extra step. So I'm going to go ahead and heat that embossing powder with my heat tool. I just love watching embossing powder melt. I don't know why. But again, you can use regular, any color you want, cardstock, any color embossing powder you want if you wanted to make your own, shiny die cut, whatever you want to do here, but I chose to go ahead and do this glittery, sparkly black embossing powder. And then I've got this word die. If you have any word die that you have will work. If you have a cutting machine like a Silhouette or something, you can cut your own word. But I'm going to do this die cut that I've had in my stash for quite some time and just run this through my die cutting machine, and it says hugs. I say hugs a lot, and so I went ahead and ran that through my die cutting machine twice, and I've got that little shiny black. It's a big word die, so I like that too. So there's the panel with the water, and then to the right is the panel that we did mixing the distress ink pumice stone and the Perfect Pearl spray together. So I'm taking my cardstock. I'm going to adhere them both to a top folding white card. I always use Nina Solar White. It's my go-to cardstock there. So it's just a top folding card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Standard A2 card. And I'm just going to adhere both of those down. So I'll have these card bases here ready to go. And then it's time to add the word die here. Anytime I add die cuts, if I've already run it through my die cutting machine, I use Multi-Matte Medium by Ranger. I love it because it's a super fine glue, but it also dries completely matte. So you can see how sloppy and messy I'm being with it. but it doesn't matter because all that glue that oozes out the side and that gets on the front of my die dries completely invisible. It's like it was never there, and the glue is super duper strong. Now, had I thought about this ahead of time, I could have run this through my die cutting machine with that Ken Oliver Stick It, and that would work as well. But since I had already die cut this, Ranger Matte Medium is what I use for my glue. All right, so I'm going to go around the edges of my card with this black soot distress ink because I wanted to tie in the black from the word dies that we added there with the hugs. So I'm just going to go around and very, very gently, not with a heavy hand, going around the edges there and just adding a little bit of that black shadowing. And I'm working off of a Tim Holtz or Ranger craft sheet, by the way, in case you're wondering. Now, as I add the ink around the edges, I'm moving my card to the left because I don't want to get any of that black ink on the back of my card base because it's white, you know, in case you were wondering that too. So I took some distress ink and I smushed it down onto my craft sheet and added some water, and then I'm flicking on some of that black ink there just to add a little bit of water drops in black just to tie everything together. I do that a lot. I need to stop. I cannot help myself. I love doing that. And then that finishes off the card. So this one's probably my favorite. I love that subtle background, and that's just with water. That is water on a stamp, and that's all there was to it. And then this one I added the distress ink and then spritzed on some of the perfect pearls and got this look too. So I hope this encourages you to grab your distress inks and do a little bit of stamping with water. Thanks for watching.